on this day, where we talk about issues that concern us as an African race. Very proud to be Africans, and of course, every day appreciating and thanking God for who we are. And of course, we are Africans. Now, thank you very much for joining us yet again today. Now, in studios, Kawaida, the usual Pan-African panel, but of course, today, I will start with the lady who is joining us on our Pan-African panel, Rachel Utakali, very own here, dressed like an African and as an African woman. You're very welcome, Rachel.
Thank you.
Happy to have you in studio this morning.
Thank you so much.
How do you feel being sandwiched by all these men?
I'm just fine.
You're fine.
She'll be fine.
And I just love the way she's been positioned. Two on her left, two on her right, and well.
And we discuss issues that are pertinent to the continent.
To all of us, the week in review, things are happening, of course, in Uganda and on the continent of Africa. But just before we get into the issues of our discussion this morning, Ndugu Mututa, the week in review, in just 2 minutes. How's your week been? What have you seen? What has made news? And what is breaking news?
Oh, the week has been okay, and we thank God for the life. But what has caught my attention this week are the 4 things that have really cast Uganda in bad shape, both in the local media, the international media, but also in the public. 4 things, including the coffee bill, that up to today, not many people know.
What is in the agreement?
What is the agreement? And the other thing is the hospital thing. The Luboa hospital, which up to now, no one knows where the hospital is. And the third thing is the issue of, which is definitely an issue, the failure to look at the claims that the former speaker was poisoned. And we have heard people say this, people say so. I think as a government, there is a problem there. That the way we communicate, the way we relate as agencies, and of course, even these other issues of coffee, are all part of that. So to me, these are issues that really caught my attention, and I think the attention of many other Ugandans, and the way they are being managed doesn't show a lot of werufu, as would have been the case.
Okay, thank you very much. Metuta Kali, the week in review.
Aside from what he has already said, there's also the Nakawanaguru saga, very toxic situation. We hope that they'll arrive at the bottom of that particular matter. And of course, there's the unfolding situation at the DRC border. There's a really potent crisis, refugee crisis. As you know, East African heads of state about now are in Nairobi, and we hope that DR Congo will finally receive the sort of support it needs to stabilize. It's a tragic case. I think for me, that one more than any other. These are the things that my colleague has spoken about. We have talked exhaustively about. They're running around and refusing to really do the right thing. But we are hopeful that one day things will actually get back to where they should be in the governance of this country.
Okay. Comrade Rugarama.
Yes. Since we are discussing parliament and development on the African continent, which is basically the continuation of what we've been looking at. It is very important to appreciate the fact that actually the Luboa hospital, the coffee
coffee agreements,
whatever the other name of the person purportedly who is going to deliver the magic bullet to our coffee industry agreement, the almost forgotten Luboa and just this Shimon Chogam agreements, are all works of parliament. And you realize that in one war or another, parliament. And,
Yeah, that's also trending. Well,
absolutely. So we cannot really. There are people in the villages who have been calling me that, are you not part of the man used to be your friend? I'm like, no, I will check out.
to see whether your invitation is actually in your pigeonhole.
But anyhow, I think Uganda is experiencing a legislation
Crisis also.
legislation issues, and maybe we are going to dig deep into the difficulties of legislation as seen in the lenses of the executive, the demands of the executive, because there seem to be a dichotomous anger between the executive, the allegation that what the legislature does is, in a majority of the cases, not respected by the executive. So maybe we need to expound on that and see as to whether the legislature does work that is not interfered with adversely by the other two arms of the government.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And Ndugu Akolmanya Mazima, let me see your thoughts on the week in review. Then, of course, we get into the issues of parliament and Africa's development.
Well, I think I'll start from where Comrade Rugarama on the issue of the birthday. I think it's going to be the first of its kind, seeing a first son celebrate the birthday in such a fashion, and it will be a learning experience to see exactly what goes on, and everyone is anxiously waiting to see how the birthday will go. And of course, as he has promised, that those who cannot make it to Lugogo, they will actually have chance to sit on.
Where is the birthday going to be? Because part of our team has traveled to
There's
Bushenyi.
Bushenyi, there is Lugogo,
There is
there is State House,
Bushenyi, there is Lugogo.
yes.
Even Masaka.
Masaka was yesterday. There was, yes.
So what was in Masaka yesterday? I'm only asking because I don't know. You started this thing.
What I can say is that none of us is on the organizing committee, but this
okay, but some of you have information. You privy to certain information that some of us don't know.
The information we have, we shall be there.
Yeah, so those of us who are not invited,
Are you invited?
will be able to follow on television. Yeah, no, away from that.
You must have an invitation cards. A call must have an invitation card.
Away from that, other issue is I'm actually now going to Kenya, where there is the running mate headache. The Okoa, I mean the One Kenya Alliance, as Miola Kenya, that is by Raila Odinga. They are failing to pick a running mate. Yeah.
Kenya Kwanza is also failing to fit.
Also, the Iruto, yes, Kenya Kwanza, they are actually.
But I don't think they're actually just failing. Yeah. Maybe they're holding their running mates. It could be deliberate.
I think so, in Kenya, it is a game of numbers when it comes to voting. So now you're saying, which community do I bring? Because ideally, the Kikuyu, the Central Kenya has the numbers that one would need. So I think now it's a question: do I choose a Kikuyu or do I choose somebody who can help me run government? So it's a question now. The discussion is between numbers and somebody who can help you run government. Now, away from Kenya, I think it is Malawi. When Lazarus Chakwera came in, he came in with a lot of hopes. Because having won an election, first of all, having won a petition against an election, there's a rerun organized, and he emerges out as the best. Then there was a lot of hopes that really being a clergyman, a scholar,
and an orator.
There are so many things. But you see, I saw this coming when he went to, I don't know which country, with the wife and the daughter, when actually it was supposed to be Zoom meeting.
To London.
Yes.
They went to London to Zoom.
It was a Zoom meeting, and he went with the whole family.
To Zoom.
So that
They
is when
went to London to Zoom.
Leaving the Minister for Foreign Affairs.
They went to London to Zoom.
That's when I realized that if he's not steady, he may mess the country. And indeed, 1 year down the road, you can see now the demonstrations all over. So much that even the army in Malawi, that has always been known for staying in the barracks, for being impartial, they have also this time joined the people because of the high cost of living, the increasing cost of prices at the expense of
we are the ones hyping him, you remember?
Okay, well, thank you so much, gentlemen. And now we will get from all that. And of course, things are happening. You just talked about Malawi, and you know, the army came out to say, and some people in the desert, wherever they were. Well, but let's get to the conversation this morning, and we'll talk about parliaments and, of course, their role in developing and the development of Africa. Now, just before we get into that, I have a tweet here well, it's a screenshot from somebody's post. And it talks about the aspirants in Kenya. You talked about Kenya. And of course, elections are coming on in Kenya in the month of August. And on the 9th of August is when they will be electing a president to take over from Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. However, somebody here called Dennis Nyabane or Nyambane. He brought contestants for all the aspirants for the counties here. Now, Siaya, and one of the contestants is Dr. Christine Ombaka, a PhD holder for woman representative, Dr. Oburu Oginga, another PhD holder for Senate, Dr. Gideon Ochanda, another PhD holder for MP Bondo, Daniel Juma, another PhD holder for MP Ugenya, and Dr. Otiende Amolo, another PhD holder, Member of Parliament for Rieda, and James Orengo, Senior Counsel, whom we all know, for Governor. Now that's for Siaya. Now Siaya has got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 6 PhDs. Everybody there say, we need to be there. Now, Kisumu County aspirants, the governor is Professor Nyongo, he's a PhD holder. The deputy governor is Dr. Willie, another PhD holder. Senator Professor Ojienda, another PhD holder. Then the woman representative, Dr. Rose Odinga, another PhD holder. And for Kisumu Central is Dr. Orono, another PhD holder. And of course, the MP for Seme is another PhD holder, Dr. Nyikai. Now, these are what form the parliaments of Africa. And of course, now this is in Kenya. This is in Kenya. The other day there was an argument of we have 40 million Ugandans, and out of the 40 million Ugandans, we do not have, I think, 2,000 PhDs. We have about 200,000 master's degrees in the country. And of course, we find all of these grappling and getting there. And of course, let me start with Rachel, the female voice that we have in our Pan-African panel here today. The role of parliament, and of course looking at them, we've seen parliaments everywhere. You'll notice that there is not a single African country, even where the issues of security and insecurity and destabilization, at least they may not have technical persons or advisors anywhere, but at least they will have a parliament, whether in abeyance, they will have elected leaders somehow who are looked to fix and to make things work. Where is their role, and what are they to the development of our continent of Africa?
Well, it's a very telling situation when you when people have such a learned field of candidates. But unfortunately, that is not the problem of Africa. The problem of Africa, I would argue, is that we are yet to determine what is right for us. I have argued many, many times that until we get to a place where we decide as nations how we should be governed and by whom, why, and for how long, we have not even begun the journey to democracy. For me, our problem stems back to the colonial era. Our lacuna began when these systems that we call ours, whether it be parliamentary, whether it be the presidential system, were really transplanted. They were transplanted wholesale, unfortunately. We did not have a time to really acclimatize to these things. As a result, Africa has been grappling with a colonial arrangement that has never really become part of us. These systems were grafted wholesale in terms of the morals, values, outlook, and other such tastes that are alien totally and fully. Unfortunately for us, the people who took charge after the colonial era did not see it fit to re-examine the roots that are our problems today. It is very easy to, for example, point out what our problem is. You talked of Kenya. Kenya, much like Uganda, came from out of the British arrangement, which is called, of course, the Westminster model. But the execution of that style is wanting in every way. Britain, for example, has 2 houses, and it's only recently that Kenya morphed into that arrangement. But even then, it's problematic. So what we are saying is that it is good to have intellectuals, but unfortunately for Africa, these intellectuals have not applied themselves in an intellectual way. An intellectual who is true to what he really is should be one to dissect the problems, but unfortunately for us, they are heaping themselves onto a problem. They are also now transplanting themselves onto a problematic scenario. Africa, as we see today, I know that we are rotating around the parliamentary issue, but intra-continental comparison of parliamentary performance is impossible. Because remember that the parliamentary models that we inherited are either British, French, American, Belgian, Portuguese, or there's one other that I think I've forgotten. But therefore, it is hard in Africa to know which parliament is performing and which is not. Because first of all, we are using parameters that we have never internalized. Parameters that are alien to us. Parameters that we have never agreed upon. So how do you start measuring someone who has never understood what they are dealing with? Mr. Jagenda, that is our problem today.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Now, you made a very good submission here and talked about the integration or the transplant actually over the system that we got in here. And of course, the conversation extends to the education system. And we say why we have this kind of education system that takes so many through schools and they graduate. And of course, at the end of the day, see all these PhDs and they mount to nothing. You'll notice that Uganda, for example, has over 30 PhDs in economics. And then somebody would want to say, okay, with 30 PhDs in economics, why would we have the economic situation that we are in here today? You would think that these would actually fix the economy of Uganda in just an instant, this education system. But one writer, and he's Ugandan, Sunlight Chirunda. Sunlight Chirunda is an expert at oils and etc. In one of his books, The Fourth Heritage, he actually says, the same people who brought this education that we castigate are the same people who gave us the religion that we praise every day.
Yes.
Because we fail on education, we fail in maybe governance, but we tend to excel when it comes to religion. All of us will go to our Catholic churches, our Anglican churches, our born-again churches, our all these, and the same people who taught us how to pray, the same people who taught us and brought this good to us, brought education. We are failing on education, but we are excelling in religion and whatever they brought to us as another religion. And why is it that we still transplanted the religion and running with it? Nduguru Garama, maybe you pick it up from there as Rachel comes in later.
Thank you so much. I will not go deep into this religions issue because it is so deep and sometimes disturbing. But suffice just to mention that it is the cocaine of the African mind, as I talk. And another day, I will have an opportunity to explain this very statement which I have just made. But maybe a little bit of that is that even in our traditional denominations as we know them, there is less of the questioning and more of the acceptance of whatever is passed on to us, to a point that we can fight and kill for that we less understand. That's a problem. There is also a new version of the gospel. And like St. Paul, who said that whoever teaches something else that I have not taught you, may that such a person be cast. Now, there is a growing Pentecostal spirit, and I have no problem with the Pentecostal spirit, no problem, because we used to have the revival. But there is a way this message is getting onto the African mind, the African man, the African woman, that we are now a community of miracles. The preaching about hard work, the calling upon the name of God to bless the seasons, so that we can have the right mind when the season comes, is dying away. We would rather spend a lot of time in the churches calling for the miracles, rather than going into the field of work and calling upon God to bless our hands from there. Now I will leave that one at that. I greatly associate myself with what my sister has just submitted. And let me just say that when you brought that cast of very high sounding, I was greatly impressed. But you see, our problem largely is not the quantity of the education, no, it is the quality of the education. PhD is all right. I love education myself. But see, we have had this education system since the colonial man was here. Actually then, he was directly taking quote unquote bright students from here directly to London and other of these former colonial countries. But you see, and of course the trend has been increasing, the trend has improved, because now we get scholarships, there is chevening, there are all sorts of scholarships that come here, and then we take our mind, our able-bodied and able students to get these masters and PhDs and what have you. Now, if the PhDs, if the masters, if the bachelor degrees were the solution to Africa's problem, I think we would be somewhere in solving the problems of Africa. But our education system, largely on the African continent, is not yet right. And that is why embedded therein are the difficulties of solving the problems of Africa. Because Professor Edward Deseu defines education. And parts of his definition is that it should be that body of knowledge created and disseminated to a given population to enable that population to have the ability. And we have diagnosed the problem with microscopic exactness. But every time a healing knife is applied, a new sore appears. That appears to be the problem of Africa. I thank you.
Thank you very much. And now we talk about parliament, and of course we're trying to examine parliaments, their role in Africa's development, and of course the democracies on the oversight role. And the question that comes to mind is, where was Parliament when all these deals were actually being written or assented to or accepted? Then you make the first payment and the second payment and the third payment, and all of you are members of Parliament. Now you have a house of 500 members of Parliament representing everybody in the country, and the other day they make noise on TV like this, on radio, and say, How did you even do it? Then the question is, now who should be able to actually know? Who should tell the world or the public what is actually happening? Is everybody working the way they want to do? And then we look at parliaments. We have regional assembly. We just admitted the DRC to the fraternity of ESC about a month ago. The next thing is you will see 9 members of parliament representing the DRC at Yala. They will be there. Now, that comes with its own wage bill, it comes with its own cost, it comes with it's everything. And of course now...
Software, or the Low Tribe, the software of Kenya. But one thing I also want us to look at is that definitely education plays a key role. A very, very, very key role. For example, there was a time I attended some workshop here in Uganda, and it was organized by the Auditor General, and the report was amazing that most of the people who sit on the accountability committees of Parliament actually agreeing about it. That you find that the chairman of such a committee, there are about 5 of them, the committees that deal with such with accountability, but you find that the composition. So every other time there is something to deal with in terms of accountability, they are just tourists on that committee. So that is why education really is very, very key. I also, yes, our education is getting whites, the colonialists, who left us about half a century ago, that they gave us an education system that doesn't work for us. But when it comes to things like vices, like corruptions, we learn very fast. We don't say that this is not African. And when it comes to issues like good governance, we say, no, that is not our thing. We don't need to take it. Every country has a national curriculum development institute or center. But now what happened is that more than 50 years after independence, what are they doing? They should actually reform the education system so that it can fit within the aspirations of that country. Now, back to our parliaments. Yes, our parliaments in Africa, most of them, I can say about 90% are really, we can say they are not as independent as they are supposed to be. They are actually overshadowed by the executive. That you find that whatever the executive